Pathetic, Lady Vespera hisses, her crimson gown sweeping past Greta's kneeling form. Even for a human, you're utterly useless. Is it truly so difficult to pour a simple glass without trembling? Greta keeps her eyes down, focusing on the spreading red stain across white stone. It looks like blood in the low candlelight. Everything in this fortress looks like blood eventually. I'm sorry, my lady. Sorry. Vespera laughs, the sound sharp as breaking ice. Rupert, remind me again why we tolerate this creature. Rupert, the head of King Aldrich's royal guard, steps forward. He's all angles and cruelty, his pale face set in permanent disapproval. The king requested her specifically, Lady Vespera, though I cannot fathom why. 3 pairs of eyes turn toward the massive 4-poster bed dominating the far side of the chamber, where King Aldrich Montclair lies motionless beneath black silk sheets. He hasn't moved in 2 days, hasn't fed, hasn't spoken. The court physicians whisper about blood sickness, about the rare poison that can fell even the oldest vampires. Greta's chest tightens. She hasn't been allowed near him since he collapsed. Well, Vespera says slowly, running one jeweled finger along the edge of a side table. If our beloved king doesn't wake soon, we'll need to make certain arrangements. Her gaze slides to Rupert, something unspoken passing between them. After all, the realm requires leadership. Strong leadership. Greta rises on shaking legs, gathering the broken glass in a silver pan. Her worn servant's dress hangs loose on her frame. She's lost weight since arriving here, too anxious to eat most days. But she came here willingly, desperately, after her younger sister Mia was diagnosed with bone cancer. The hospital bills were drowning them both, when the royal household advertiser appeared in their shabby apartment building, offering positions for human servants, promising wages that could cover experimental treatments. Greta didn't hesitate. She expected hard work. She expected vampire politics and casual cruelty. She didn't expect Aldrich. The king had interviewed her himself, unusual for someone seeking such a low position. He'd sat across from her in a private library, dark eyes studying her face with unsettling intensity. Not cruel, just seeing. Actually seeing her in a way that made her feel naked. Why do you need this position so badly? He'd asked, his voice deep and measured. She'd told him about Mia, about the cancer eating through her sister's bones, about the experimental treatment in Switzerland that insurance wouldn't cover, about how she'd do anything, become anything, to save the only family she had left. Aldrich had been quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll cover your sister's treatment. All of it. The Switzerland clinic, aftercare, everything. Greta had stared at him, certain she'd misheard. In exchange, he'd continued, you'll work directly for me. No one else. You'll attend to my chambers, my private needs. You won't answer to the other staff. He'd leaned forward slightly. And Greta, you'll trust no one here but me. Do you understand? She'd nodded, overwhelmed, confused by the intensity in his expression. That was 3 months ago. Mia is in Switzerland now, the cancer in remission, her messages filled with hope for the first time in years. And Greta has spent every day since navigating the serpent's nest of Montclair Court, protected only by her connection to a king who barely acknowledges her in public, except in private. In private, Aldrich is different. She's seen him late at night, when he thinks no one's watching, standing at the window of his chambers and staring out at the dark forest beyond the estate. She's noticed how he never takes more blood than necessary when he feeds from the volunteers, how he keeps his touch clinical and brief. She's heard him speaking softly to the ancient cat that lives in the library, a one-eyed tabby named Churchill that everyone else ignores. And twice, just twice, he's asked her to sit with him. Not to serve, just to sit. He'd wanted to know about her life before, about the books she read, about what she missed most from the human world. She'd told him about the small bakery near her old apartment that made sourdough bread every Sunday morning, And the next week, fresh sourdough had appeared in her quarters with a note in elegant script. Small comforts matter. That's when Greta started falling. Stupidly, impossibly falling for a vampire king who barely touched her, and who, according to every rule of their different worlds, could never be hers. Now he lies dying, and the vultures are circling. "You're dismissed," Vespera snaps, and Greta hurries toward the door, the pan of broken glass clutched in her hands. But as she passes the bed, she risks one quick glance at Aldrich's face. In 2 days he's grown paler, more waxen. His dark hair spreads across the pillow like a spill of ink. His features are sharp, aristocratic, beautiful in that terrible way vampires are beautiful, like carved stone brought impossibly to life. His eyes are closed. They haven't opened since he collapsed during the blood moon ceremony. Greta's throat burns. She blinks hard and keeps walking. In the hallway beyond, she dumps the broken glass in a waste chute and leans against the cold stone wall, trying to steady her breathing. Servants rush past with barely a glance. Everyone's on edge with the king incapacitated. The entire hierarchy of the estate is destabilizing. She needs air. Real air, not the recycled cold of these inner chambers. Greta navigates the maze of corridors until she reaches a small courtyard used primarily for storing firewood. It's past midnight, the sky above a blanket of stars. She wraps her arms around herself and breathes in the scent of pine and earth. There you are, she spins. Rupert stands in the archway, his expression unreadable in the shadows. 2 other guards flank him, Fallon and Greaves, both loyal to Rupert above all else. Greta's pulse quickens. "I'm just taking a moment, sir. I'll return to duties immediately. No need to rush." Rupert steps into the courtyard, and something in his smile makes her skin crawl. "In fact, I wanted to discuss your future here at the estate." She backs up until her shoulders hit the courtyard wall. "My future?" "Yes." Rupert exchanges a glance with Fallon. "You see, with the king's unfortunate condition, things are going to change. Lady Vespera will assume leadership, and will be restructuring the household staff. Certain positions will be eliminated." "I understand." Greta swallows hard. "If you need to terminate my employment—" "Oh, not terminate." Rupert's smile widens. "Repurpose. You see, there's quite a market for young, healthy human women in the Southern Territories. Blood slaves are always in demand, especially ones already acclimated to vampire households. The world tilts. You can't— The king arranged for my employment. My contract— The king," Rupert says softly, "is indisposed, and contracts can be renegotiated, especially when substantial sums are involved." He names a figure that makes Greta's stomach drop. "That's what you're worth on the southern markets. Lady Vespera thinks it's a fair arrangement given how much drain you've been on resources. I have rights. You have whatever rights we decide to give you." Fallon moves closer, cutting off her path to the archway. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're giving you fair warning. When the king dies, and he will die, probably within the week, you'll be transported south. Think of it as early notification. And if you try to run," Greaves adds, cracking his knuckles, "we'll make sure you regret it. Can't damage the merchandise too much, but there's wiggle room." Greta's mind races. Run where? The estate is miles from the nearest human settlement. She has no money, no resources, no way to contact anyone who might help. And Mia, if she runs, they'll stop paying for Mia's treatment. Her sister will die. Her voice breaks. "Please, there must be another option." "There isn't." Rupert turns to leave, then pauses. "Oh, and Greta?" "The king's girlfriend. That's rich. Did you actually think he cared about you?" "You were a transaction, a way to ensure loyalty from a desperate human. Nothing more." He laughs, the sound echoing off stone. "Best you learn that now before you're sold to someone less patient than us." They leave her there, shaking in the cold. Greta slides down the wall until she's sitting on frozen ground, her arms wrapped tight around her knees. tears blur the stars above. She wants to scream, to fight. But what's the point? She's one human woman in a fortress full of vampires who see her as currency. Unless Aldrich wakes. But he won't. Everyone says the poison is too advanced, that even ancient vampires can't recover once the blood sickness reaches the heart. He's dying, and she's going to be sold, and everything, Mia's treatment, her own fragile hope for something better, is crumbling like ash. She doesn't know how long she sits there. Long enough for her tears to dry and her body to go numb from cold. Long enough to seriously consider running anyway, consequences be damned. Then she hears it. A low, resonant sound from inside the fortress. A bell, maybe. Or a gong. The kind of sound that signals something important. Greta forces herself upright and stumbles back through the corridors. Servants are running now, their faces shocked. She grabs a passing maid, Yvonne, one of the few who's ever been kind to her. What's happening? Yvonne's eyes are huge. The king! Greta, he's awake. The next morning, Greta is summoned to the throne room. She hasn't slept. After hearing about Aldrich's recovery, she'd gone to his chambers, but guards blocked the entrance. Lady Vespera was inside with him, along with Rupert and half the court. No servants allowed. Now she stands in the vast hall where the king conducts official business, her palms sweating despite the cold. Vampires line the walls, nobles, guards, advisors, all watching her with expressions ranging from curious to hostile. At the far end, on a throne of black marble and iron, sits Aldrich. He looks different. Still pale, still recovering, but there's a sharpness to his gaze that wasn't there before. He's dressed in formal court attire, a dark suit with silver embroidery, a heavy cloak clasped at one shoulder. Every inch the powerful king. He doesn't look at Greta. His attention is fixed on Lady Vespera, who stands to his right, looking smug and beautiful in deep purple silk. "Let's begin," Aldrich says, his voice carrying through the hall. "I've called this assembly to address certain matters that came to light during my illness." A ripple of unease moves through the gathered vampires. "First," Aldrich continues, "I want to thank those who cared for me so diligently. Lady Vespera, your concern was especially touching." Vespera inclines her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "And Captain Rupert, of course, my most trusted guard." Aldrich's gaze slides to Rupert, who stands at attention near the throne. "I understand you were quite vocal about contingency plans should I not recover." Rupert's expression doesn't change. "Only out of concern for the realm's stability, Your Majesty. Leadership cannot falter." "No," Aldrich agrees. "It cannot." He rises from the throne, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. "Which is why I found it so interesting to observe everyone's behavior while I was incapacitated." Silence drops like a stone. Aldrich turns to face the assembly, and Greta sees it, the glint of dangerous amusement in his dark eyes. "You see," he says conversationally, "I wasn't actually poisoned. Well, I was, but only a little. Just enough to appear gravely ill. A performance, if you will." He lets that sink in, watching the color drain from several faces. "I wanted to know what would happen if I were truly vulnerable. Who would protect me? Who would seize opportunity? Who would show their true nature?" Lady Vespera goes very still. "Your Majesty, I don't understand. Don't you?" Aldrich's voice sharpens. "Let me clarify. For 2 days, I lay in that bed, fully conscious, hearing every word spoken in my presence. Every single word. The temperature in the room seems to drop 10 degrees. Aldrich begins to pace, his movements controlled but predatory. I heard discussions of leadership transitions, of asset liquidations, of young human women being sold to southern blood markets." His gaze finds Rupert, and the guard actually takes a step back. Did you know the penalty for selling royal household servants without the king's explicit consent, Captain? It's considered trafficking, a capital offense. Rupert's face drains of blood, which, for a vampire, is a significant feat. Your Majesty, I would never— You would. You did. You told her directly. Aldrich stops pacing and looks straight at Greta for the first time. The intensity of his gaze steals her breath. You threatened to sell Greta to the Southern Territories. You told her she was merchandise. You made her believe she had no protection. Greta's knees weaken. He'd heard everything. Rupert struggles for words. The girl is just a servant. I was discussing hypothetical restructuring. You quoted her market value down to the last coin. Aldrich's voice could cut glass. You gave her a timeline. You threatened her with physical harm if she ran. I heard all of it, Rupert. As did several other witnesses I'd positioned throughout the fortress. He gestures, and 3 vampires step forward from the crowd, members of the Royal Guard who'd apparently been loyal all along. They've provided written testimony confirming everything. Lady Vespera tries a different approach, her voice honeyed. Your Majesty, surely you understand that during such uncertain times, we were simply trying to seize power. Aldrich turns to her. Eliminate obstacles? I also heard your conversation with Rupert about installing yourself as Regent, Vespera. About how my unfortunate death would open so many doors. The entire court holds its breath. Guards, Aldrich says quietly, arrest Lady Vespera and Captain Rupert. Charges of conspiracy, attempted trafficking, and treason. They'll stand trial at the next moon. The hall erupts in chaos. Vampires shouting, some in support, others in protest. Guards move to restrain Rupert and Vespera, both of whom are now visibly panicking. Vespera actually tries to run before 2 guards catch her arms. Through it all, Aldrich remains calm, controlled, a king absolutely certain of his power. Greta stands frozen, trying to process what's happening. He'd faked it, the whole thing. Played dead to expose traitors, and in doing so, heard the threats against her. Heard how they'd planned to sell her like property. When the arrested conspirators are dragged from the hall, and the crowd begins to disperse, still buzzing with shock and speculation, Aldrich finally approaches Greta. Up close, she can see the faint shadows under his eyes. The test had clearly taken some toll, but his gaze is steady, searching her face. Walk with me, he says. It's not a request. He leads her to the library, that same private room where he'd first interviewed her. The ancient cat, Churchill, dozes on a velvet chair near the fireplace. Aldrich gestures for Greta to sit, then takes the chair opposite. For a long moment, he just looks at her. I'm sorry, he says finally. Greta blinks. You're sorry? I knew my test would create instability. I knew opportunists would emerge, but I underestimated how quickly they'd target you. His jaw tightens. I should have positioned guards closer to you. I should have ensured you were protected. You were pretending to be dying. Kind of hard to give orders. A ghost of a smile. I had contingencies, but not enough, apparently. He leans forward, elbows on his knees. When I heard Rupert in that courtyard, telling you what they planned to do, I almost broke the act right there. Almost revealed myself just to stop them. Greta's heart hammers. Why didn't you? Because I needed the full confession. I needed their intentions stated clearly, witnessed, undeniable. His eyes darken. But hearing you cry afterwards, hearing you so afraid and hopeless, that was harder than any poison. She doesn't know what to say. This powerful, ancient king, concerned about her tears. Why me? The question escapes before she can stop it. You pay for me as treatment. You protect me from the court. Why? I'm nobody. Just a desperate human who needed money. Aldrich is quiet for a moment. Then he rises and walks to the window, looking out at the forest beyond. Do you remember what you said during your interview? When I asked why you needed this position, I told you about my sister. You said, I'd do anything, become anything, to save the only family I have left. He turns to face her. Do you know how rare that is? True, unconditional love? The willingness to sacrifice everything for someone else? His expression softens. I've lived over 300 years, Greta. I've seen humans betray each other for pocket change, watched families destroy themselves over pride and greed. But you would have sold yourself into servitude without hesitation to save your sister. That kind of love is precious. It's worth protecting. Greta's throat tightens. You barely know me. I know enough. He moves closer, and she has to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I know you're kind to Churchill even though he's a terrible-tempered beast. I know you leave water out for the garden mice, even though you're not supposed to. I know you read poetry in your spare time, and you hum when you think no one's listening. His voice drops. I know you're stronger than you believe yourself to be. The air between them feels charged, electric. Aldrich, she stands, bringing them almost chest to chest. What Rupert said, about me being your girlfriend. He called it ridiculous. Rupert is a fool awaiting execution. But he's right, isn't he? I'm a human servant. You're a vampire king. Even if there was something between us, it's impossible. Is it? Aldrich reaches out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cups her face with one hand. His palm is cool against her skin. I'm the king. I decide what's possible. Her breath catches. Your court would never accept. My court, he says firmly, will accept what I tell them to accept. And if they don't, a dangerous edge enters his voice. They're welcome to challenge me. See how that works out. Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the absolute insanity of this situation, Greta laughs. It comes out shaky, but real. You faked your own death to expose traitors. You're kind of terrifying. Only to my enemies. His thumb brushes her cheekbone, achingly gentle. To you, I would be anything you needed me to be. The words hang between them, weighted with meaning. I'm scared, Greta admits. This world, your world. I don't understand all the rules. I don't know how to be what you might need. You don't need to be anything except exactly who you are. Aldrich's other hand comes up to frame her face, holding her like something precious. But I do need to know something, Greta. What you want. Because I can protect you, provide for you, keep you safe in this court. But if you want more than that, if you want what I want. He pauses, seeming to search for words. I need you to tell me. Her heart pounds so hard she's certain he can hear it. What do you want? You. Simple, direct. I want you by my side. Not as a servant. Not as someone under my protection, but as my chosen, my equal, mine, if you'll have me. Greta thinks about the past 3 months, the small kindnesses, the sourdough bread, the way he listened when she talked about her life like her words actually mattered, the fierce protectiveness in his eyes when he spoke about Rupert's threats. She thinks about how she's already fallen, despite every logical reason not to. Yes, she whispers. I want that. I want you. Aldrich's eyes close briefly, something like relief crossing his features. When he opens them again, there's heat there that makes her knees weak. Then you'll have me, he murmurs, for as long as you'll keep me. He kisses her then, soft at first, questioning. Greta responds by fisting her hands in his shirt and pulling him closer. And the kiss deepens into something desperate and claiming. His arms wrap around her waist, lifting her slightly as he backs her against the bookshelf. She gasps against his mouth, and he makes a low sound in his throat that's purely possessive. When they finally break apart, both breathing hard, Aldrich rests his forehead against hers. I should do this properly, he says, voice rough. Court you correctly, give you time to adjust. Or, Greta suggests, feeling bold, you could keep kissing me, and we could figure out the rest as we go. He laughs, the sound surprised and genuinely delighted. You'll be the death of me. Didn't you just fake that? Fair point. He kisses her again, slower this time, savoring. When he pulls back, his expression turns serious. There will be challenges, court politics, vampire traditionalists who object to a human consort, security concerns. It won't be easy. I didn't come here for easy, Greta reminds him. I came here to save my sister and ended up falling for a vampire king who fakes his own death and keeps a one-eyed cat. I'm clearly not great at choosing easy. Your sister. Aldrich straightens slightly. I want to meet her. When she's well enough, bring her here. I'll ensure she has the best care, the safest environment. Family is everything, Greta. I understand that. Tears prick her eyes. You'd do that? I'd do anything for you. He says it simply, like it's the most obvious truth in the world, starting with making absolutely certain everyone in this court understands that you're under my personal protection, that you're mine, and that anyone who threatens you will answer to me, personally. A thrill runs through her, part fear, part excitement. How will you do that? Aldrich's smile turns predatory. I'm thinking a formal announcement at tomorrow's court assembly? Something impossible to misinterpret. That sounds ominous. That sounds perfect. He pulls her close again, tucking her head under his chin. She can hear the steady, slow beat of his heart. Proof that for all his power and immortality, he's real. Solid. Here. They stay like that for a long time, wrapped in each other while Churchill snores on his chair and firelight dances across ancient books. Finally, Greta asks the question that's been nagging at her. Was any of it real? The poison, I mean. Or were you completely fine the whole time? I ingested enough nightshade to appear convincingly ill, but not enough to actually endanger myself. It was deeply unpleasant. He grimaces at the memory. Lying motionless for 2 days while people discussed dismantling everything I'd built and selling you like cattle. I've had better weeks. I'm sorry you had to do that. Don't be. It revealed exactly what I needed to know. Who's loyal, who's opportunistic, and who would prey on the vulnerable the moment oversight disappeared. His arms tighten around her. Sometimes a king needs to play dead to see who dances on his grave. Greta shakes her head, marveling at the calculated ruthlessness. Remind me never to get on your bad side. You couldn't if you tried. He kisses the top of her head. You're far too busy occupying my good side. Permanently. The next evening, Greta stands in her quarters, staring at the gown laid out on her bed. It's beautiful. Deep midnight blue silk that shimmers like starlight, with delicate silver embroidery along the neckline and hem. Far too fine for a servant. Exactly right for a king's chosen. Yvonne helps her dress, her hands shaking with either excitement or fear. Probably both. Everyone's talking about it, Yvonne whispers as she laces the back. The king's announcement. Some are saying he's naming a new captain of the guard. Others think he's declaring war on the southern territories. She meets Greta's eyes in the mirror. But I think it's about you. Greta's stomach flips. What makes you say that? Because he looks at you like you're the only person in the room. Everyone's noticed, even if they pretended not to. Yvonne adjusts the final lace, and because he had this dress commissioned 3 weeks ago. I saw the order forms in the household ledgers. 3 weeks. Before the test. Before everything. He'd been planning this, Greta realizes. Planning to claim her publicly. To make their connection undeniable. The test just accelerated the timeline. When she enters the throne room an hour later, every eye turns to her. The room is packed. Not just the regular court, but visiting nobles from neighboring territories, high-ranking guards, even some of the household staff positioned along the walls. Aldrich sits on his throne, resplendent in formal black and silver. When he sees Greta, something shifts in his expression. possessiveness mixed with pride and something warmer, fiercer. He rises and extends his hand. Greta, join me. The crowd parts as she walks the length of the hall. She's acutely aware of every whisper, every shocked face, every vampire noble trying to understand what's happening. When she reaches the throne, Aldrich takes her hand and pulls her up onto the dais beside him. Not behind, beside. Lords and ladies of the Montclair court, he begins, his voice carrying effortlessly through the space. Honored guests from our allied territories, I've called you here to witness an announcement of great personal importance. The room goes silent. Aldrich turns to Greta, still holding her hand. 3 months ago, this woman came to my household seeking employment to save her dying sister. She offered herself into service without hesitation, willing to sacrifice her freedom for family. I hired her, I watched her, and I discovered something I did not expect to find. He pauses. Courage, kindness. A strength of spirit that shines brighter than any power I've accumulated in 3 centuries. Greta's face flames, but she doesn't look away from him. 2 nights ago, while conducting a necessary test of loyalty among my court, I heard members of my own guard threaten to sell this woman into blood slavery. I heard them mock her, terrorize her, reduce her to merchandise. Aldrich's voice hardens. Those individuals are now in chains awaiting trial, but their actions revealed something I can no longer ignore or conceal. He turns back to the assembly, his grip on Greta's hand firm and sure. I am claiming Greta as my chosen consort. She will be granted all rights, titles, and protections afforded to that position. She will stand at my side as my equal, my partner, and my beloved. Any who threaten her, insult her, or fail to show her the respect due to her station will answer to me personally. His eyes rake the crowd, daring anyone to object. Is this understood? Silence. Then slowly, vampires begin to bow. Some reluctantly, others with apparent genuine respect. A few smile, those who'd been kind to Greta before, who'd seen this coming. Lord Thaddeus, an ancient vampire who serves as chief advisor, steps forward. Your Majesty, the council will need to discuss. There's nothing to discuss. Aldrich's tone brooks no argument. I'm informing you of my decision, not requesting permission. If the council has concerns, they may voice them, but my choice is made. Thaddeus studies Greta for a long moment, then inclines his head. Then may I be the first to offer congratulations to both of you. It's been too long since this court had a royal consort. Others follow suit, a cascade of bows and murmured congratulations. Not everyone looks happy about it, but no one dares object openly. Not with Aldrich radiating controlled danger and Rupert's fate fresh in everyone's minds. When the formal acknowledgements are complete, Aldrich draws Greta closer. One more thing, he says, addressing the assembly. Greta's sister, Mia, will be joining our household when her treatment is complete. She'll be afforded the same protections and courtesies as any noble guest. I expect the household to make her feel welcome. It's not a request. It's a command. The assembly is dismissed shortly after, though the real spectacle happens in the throne room's aftermath. Nobles approach to introduce themselves properly to Greta, their attitudes ranging from carefully neutral to warmly welcoming. Several offer advice on navigating court politics. One elderly vampire named Beatrice actually hugs her and whispers, "About damn time someone made that boy happy." Through it all, Aldrich stays close, his hand at the small of Greta's back, his presence a constant reminder that she's protected, claimed, his. When the last guests depart and they're finally alone in the throne room, Greta lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. That was terrifying. You were perfect. Aldrich pulls her into his arms, poised, graceful, every inch the consort of a king. I was scared out of my mind. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. He tilts her chin up. You've been doing that since the day we met. Greta leans into him, exhaustion and relief mixing in equal measure. What happens now? Now? Aldrich considers. Now we deal with the inevitable political maneuvering, the objections from traditionalists, the logistics of integrating you into court life. He pauses. And I teach you self-defense, because I won't have you vulnerable if I'm not immediately present. Romantic. Practical. But he's smiling. Though I also plan to court you properly. Dates, gifts, long conversations about everything and nothing. I may be a vampire king, but I'm not entirely without romance. You faked your death to expose traitors. I think your romance is just differently expressed. He laughs, the sound warm and genuine. Fair assessment. They stand there in the empty throne room, wrapped in each other while moonlight streams through high windows. Outside, the estate is settling into its usual nighttime rhythms. But inside this space, everything has changed. Greta thinks about where she was 3 months ago. Desperate, afraid, willing to sell herself into servitude for her sister's life. She thinks about where she is now, chosen by a king, protected, loved in a way she never imagined possible. Thank you, she says quietly, for saving Mia, for protecting me, for... Stop. Aldrich pulls back just enough to meet her eyes. You don't thank me for caring about you. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? You let me love you. You love me back if you can. We build something together that's stronger than any individual power. He touches her face with infinite gentleness, and we trust that what we have is worth fighting for. Greta rises on her toes and kisses him, pouring everything she feels into it, gratitude and desire and hope and trust. When they part, both of them are breathless. I can do that, she whispers. The loving you part is easy. You're kind of impossible not to love. The feeling, Aldrich murmurs against her lips, is entirely mutual. 3 weeks later, Greta stands in the estate's private garden, watching her sister explore the grounds with wonder-filled eyes. Mia looks good, healthy color in her cheeks, hair growing back in soft curls, movement easy and pain-free for the first time in over a year. The Switzerland treatment worked. She's in remission, with excellent prognosis for staying that way. And now she's here, in this impossible place, meeting the impossible man who saved her life. He's really a king? Mia asks for the 3rd time, watching Aldrich converse with Lord Thaddeus across the garden. Like an actual king? Yes. Greta can't help smiling. And he's your boyfriend? Consort, technically. It's more formal than boyfriend. And he's a vampire. Also, yes. Mia processes this, her expression cycling through disbelief and amazement. Greta, your life is insane. Tell me about it. Aldrich chooses that moment to break away from Thaddeus and approach them. He's dressed more casually today, just dark trousers and a white shirt, no formal regalia. It makes him look younger, more approachable. Mia, he says warmly, extending his hand. It's wonderful to finally meet you in person. Your sister talks about you constantly. Mia shakes his hand, still slightly starstruck. Thank you for everything. The treatment, bringing me here, all of it. I don't know how to... You don't need to thank me. Aldrich glances at Greta, his expression softening. Your sister's happiness is important to me, which means your well-being is important to me. It's that simple. Nothing about this is simple, Mia points out, but she's smiling. Fair point. Aldrich gestures toward the garden path. Would you like a tour of the estate? I promise to keep the vampire politics to a minimum. As they walk, Aldrich pointing out various features while Mia asks a million questions about vampire culture and history, Greta feels something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe. Or rightness. Her sister is safe. Healthy. Here. And Greta herself is loved by someone who sees all of her. The fear and strength, the desperation and hope, and chose her anyway. Later that night, after Mia is settled in her guest quarters and the estate has quieted, Greta finds Aldrich in the library. Churchill is draped across his lap, purring like a motor as Aldrich absently scratches behind the cat's ears. Room for one more? Greta asks. Aldrich looks up, and the smile that crosses his face is pure warmth. Always. She settles beside him, and he shifts so Churchill is partially in her lap too. The cat grumbles but doesn't move. High praise from Churchill. Mia likes you, Greta says. Good, I like her too. She has your directness, your strength. She asked if we're going to get married. Aldrich goes very still. And what did you tell her? I told her we're taking things as they come. Greta looks at him, but I also told her that if you asked, I'd say yes. The book Aldrich was holding falls forgotten to the floor. Churchill huffs in annoyance and relocates to his favorite chair. You would? Aldrich, you faked your own death to protect me from people who wanted to sell me. You exposed traitors, claimed me publicly, and brought my dying sister to live in your home. She takes his hand, lacing their fingers together. I'm already yours. The only question is whether you want forever. I've lived 300 years, Aldrich says quietly, waiting for someone who makes forever sound appealing rather than daunting. So, yes, Greta, I want forever, with you, if you'll have me. Is this a proposal? It's a statement of intent. He pulls her into his lap, positioning her so they're face to face. When I propose properly, it'll involve considerably more ceremony, and probably a ring that will make you curse at me for being excessive. Greta laughs, looping her arms around his neck. I look forward to it. In the meantime, he kisses her slowly, thoroughly, until she's dizzy with it. We have time to build our life together, to navigate this world side by side, to figure out what forever looks like for us. Outside the library windows, snow begins to fall. The first snow of winter, dusting the estate grounds in white. Inside, firelight dances across ancient books and two people who found each other against impossible odds. Greta thinks about the scared, desperate woman who walked into this fortress 3 months ago, willing to sacrifice everything for family. She thinks about how that desperation led to this. To love, to safety, to a future that sparkles with possibility. I love you, she tells Aldrich, the words simple but weighted with certainty. I love you, he responds, holding her like she's precious, like she's his. My brave, impossible, perfect love. And there, in the library where their story began, they stay wrapped in each other while snow falls, and Churchill snores, and forever stretches out before them, like an unwritten book waiting to be filled with their story. A story of a desperate human and a vampire king who played dead to protect what mattered most. A story of found family, chosen love, and the kind of courage that blooms in the darkest places. A story that's theirs alone, written in fire and devotion, and the absolute certainty that sometimes, impossibly, fairy tales come true. Even in a fortress full of vampires. Even when you're just a girl trying to save her sister. Even when the king chooses you, claims you, and promises you forever. Especially then. The southern delegation arrives on a bitter February morning, their carriages rolling through gates that haven't opened for foreign dignitaries in over a decade. Greta watches from the library window as Aldrich greets them in the courtyard, his posture formal and controlled. She's learned to read the subtle tension in his shoulders, the particular set of his jaw that means he's dealing with something he'd rather avoid. They're early, Beatrice observes from behind her, the elderly vampire settling into a chair with a cup of blood-laced tea. That's never a good sign. Southern vampires don't do anything ahead of schedule unless they're trying to gain advantage. Advantage over what? Greta turns from the window. Aldrich said this was a routine diplomatic visit. Beatrice's expression suggests she thinks Greta adorably naive. Child, there's no such thing as routine when the Southern Covenant gets involved. They've been circling Aldrich's territory for decades, waiting for weakness. She sips her tea. And now he's taken a human consort. To them, that's blood in the water. Greta's stomach tightens. She's been Aldrich's acknowledged consort for 2 months now, and while most of the Montclair court has accepted her presence with varying degrees of grace, she knows the broader vampire world is less progressive. She's heard whispers about other territories, about old families who consider humans beneath notice, except as food or servants. What do they want? To test him, to see if love has made him soft. Beatrice sets down her cup. I'd suggest you attend the welcome banquet tonight. Show them exactly how unfazed you are by their presence. That evening, Greta stands before her mirror in a gown of deep crimson silk. Aldrich's colors, a deliberate choice. Mia helps arrange her hair, weaving small pearls through the dark strands. You look like a queen, Mia says softly. I'm not a queen, just a consort. Same difference in their eyes. Mia meets her gaze in the mirror. Greta, are you sure about tonight? If these vampires are as hostile as Beatrice says, I have to go. If I hide, it confirms what they already think, that I'm weak, unsuitable. Greta turns from the mirror. I won't give them that satisfaction. The banquet hall glitters with hundreds of candles, their light reflecting off crystal and silver. The southern delegation occupies the head of one long table, 5 vampires dressed in elaborate period clothing that makes even Aldrich's formal attire look understated. At their center sits Lady Morgana, the Southern Covenant's representative. She's stunning in the way very old vampires are stunning. Ageless beauty with something predatory beneath it. Her gown is black silk and diamonds, her dark hair coiled in an elaborate style that must have taken hours. She doesn't acknowledge Greta's entrance. Aldrich does. He rises from his seat, extending his hand. Greta, come, meet our guests. Every eye in the hall tracks her progress across the floor. She keeps her spine straight, her expression pleasant and neutral, as Aldrich introduces her to the delegation. Lady Morgana, may I present Greta, my chosen consort. Morgana's gaze travels over Greta with the assessment of someone evaluating livestock. How charming, and so young. The implication hangs in the air, not just young in years, but young in every way that matters. Human, mortal, temporary. Lady Morgana. Greta inclines her head with the exact degree of respect appropriate for a visiting noble, not subservient, but acknowledging rank. Beatrice drilled her on protocol for weeks. Tell me, dear, Morgana says, her voice honey-sweet. How do you find life among vampires? It must be quite overwhelming for someone of your background. Translation: how does a nobody human survive in a world beyond her understanding? I find it enlightening, Greta responds smoothly. There's so much history here, so much tradition. I'm grateful to learn from those with centuries of experience. Aldrich's hand finds the small of her back. Support, solidarity. Morgana smiles, showing just a hint of fang. How diplomatic, though I wonder if diplomacy is enough in our world. We value strength above all else. She gestures languidly to the others at her table. Lord Cassius here is over 500 years old. Lady Roxana has negotiated treaties that shaped continents. Even our youngest member, Vincent, has lived 2 full human lifetimes. Her gaze returns to Greta. What exactly do you bring to such company? The question is calculated cruelty, designed to humiliate. The hall goes quiet, everyone waiting for Greta's response. But before she can answer, Aldrich speaks, his voice carrying deadly calm. She brings perspective that immortals often lose, compassion that doesn't diminish with age, and courage that puts many of my ancient peers to shame. His arm slides around Greta's waist, claiming and protective. What she brings, Morgana, is irreplaceable. Which is more than I can say for most vampires I've encountered. Morgana's smile doesn't waver, but something cold flickers in her eyes. Of course, forgive my curiosity. It's just so unusual to see one of our kind bind themselves to something so fragile. Fragile, Aldrich repeats, his tone suggesting she's chosen her words poorly. Greta has survived circumstances that would break most beings, mortal or otherwise. I wouldn't mistake her humanity for weakness. The dinner proceeds with excruciating formality. Greta picks at her food. The kitchen prepared human dishes for her, but her appetite has vanished. The Southern delegation makes pointed conversation about vampire politics, ancient bloodlines, territory disputes from centuries past. Every topic calculated to remind Greta how little she belongs. Halfway through the third course, Lord Cassius addresses Aldrich directly. We've heard interesting rumors about recent events in your territory. Something about a test of loyalty that resulted in executions? Not executions, trials. Aldrich's expression reveals nothing. 2 members of my court were found guilty of conspiracy and trafficking. Justice was served. And the catalyst for this discovery? Morgana leans forward slightly. I heard you employed rather theatrical methods. I did what was necessary to expose traitors. Aldrich meets her gaze steadily. Surely the Southern Covenant understands the importance of rooting out disloyalty. Oh, certainly. Though we find more traditional methods equally effective, without the need for dramatics. Morgana dabs her mouth with a napkin. But then we don't have the same distractions you seem to have acquired recently. Her gaze slides to Greta, the insult unmistakable. Greta sets down her fork, her hands steady despite the anger building in her chest. Lady Morgana, if you have something to say to me directly, please do. We don't have to dance around it. The hall goes dead silent. Vampires don't speak to each other this bluntly, especially not across political lines. For Greta, a human, to address an ancient vampire this way. Morgana's smile sharpens. Direct. How refreshing. Very well, I'll be plain. There are concerns, shared by many in our community, that King Aldrich's judgment has been compromised by his attachment to you, that his focus has shifted from his duties to his territory to other interests. Morgana, Aldrich's voice carries warning, but Greta touches his hand. Let her finish. Morgana looks almost pleased. The decision to elevate a human to consort status is unprecedented in our modern age. It raises questions about stability, about succession, about whether personal desires are being prioritized over political necessity. She pauses. Some wonder if this territory needs stronger leadership unencumbered by emotional entanglements. There it is, the real threat delivered with poisoned elegance. Are you suggesting, Greta says carefully, that my presence makes Aldrich weak? I'm suggesting that love makes everyone weak, vulnerable, distracted. Morgana's eyes glitter. And in our world, weakness is death. Aldrich starts to stand, but Greta speaks first, her voice clear and carrying. You're right about one thing. Love does make you vulnerable. It means you have something to lose. Something precious that can be threatened or taken. She meets Morgana's gaze without flinching. But it also makes you fiercer, more determined. Because now you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for what you love. She glances at Aldrich, then back to Morgana. Aldrich didn't become weaker when he chose me. He became more dangerous. Ask the traitors who thought they could threaten me how that worked out for them. Morgana's expression shifts slightly, calculation replacing condescension. And as for succession, Greta continues, emboldened now, I'm mortal. Whatever time Aldrich and I have together is finite. I'm not a permanent fixture demanding eternal accommodation. I'm just someone he's chosen to walk beside for as long as I'm able. Her voice softens. If that's enough to destabilize your entire political structure, perhaps your structure is more fragile than you think. For a long moment, Morgana just stares at her. Then, unexpectedly, she laughs. It's genuine, surprised amusement. Well, she says, perhaps there's steel beneath that mortal flesh after all. She raises her glass. 2 surprising discoveries. The tension in the hall eases fractionally. Other vampires lift their glasses, murmuring agreement. The dinner resumes with less hostility. though the undercurrent of assessment remains. When the banquet finally ends and guests disperse, Aldrich pulls Greta into a private alcove off the main corridor. "That was incredibly reckless," he says, but his eyes are bright with something like pride. "Morgana could have taken offense and challenged you directly. I know, but I was tired of being talked around like furniture." Greta leans against the stone wall, exhaustion hitting her now that the adrenaline is fading. "Did I make things worse?" "You made them interesting." Aldrich frames her face with his hands. "Morgana respects strength. By standing your ground, you earned something valuable, her attention as a person, not just a curiosity to be dismissed." "Lucky me," he kisses her forehead. "My fierce, impossible love. You never fail to surprise me." But 3 hours later, Greta wakes to the sound of breaking glass and screaming. She bolts upright in bed, Aldrich's bed, where she's spent most nights since becoming his consort. But Aldrich isn't beside her. His side of the bed is cold. Another scream, closer now. Greta scrambles out of bed, grabbing the robe draped over a chair. Her heart hammers as she rushes to the door and yanks it open. The corridor is chaos. Servants running, guards shouting orders. Smoke drifts through the air, acrid and wrong. Greta grabs a passing guard, one of the loyal ones who'd testified against Rupert. "What's happening?" "Attack. Southern delegation. They're not what they claimed." His face is grim. "Some of them are blood mages. They've taken hostages in the East Wing." "Where's Aldrich?" "Confronting them. But they have leverage." The guard's eyes widen as he looks at something behind Greta. No, you can't be here. You need to hide. Looking for someone?" Greta spins. Vincent, the youngest member of Morgana's delegation, stands at the corridor's end. He's dropped all pretense of civility. His eyes are solid black, his fingers elongated into claws. Blood magic, Beatrice had warned about. Ancient, forbidden, incredibly dangerous. The little human consort. Vincent's smile is all wrong, too wide. Perfect. Morgana wants you intact, but she didn't specify unharmed. The guard steps between them, weapon raised, but Vincent moves with inhuman speed. One slash of those clawed hands, and the guard crumples, blood spreading across stone. Greta runs. She doesn't think, just reacts on pure instinct. Down the corridor toward the main halls where there might be more guards, more help. Behind her, Vincent laughs, the sound echoing off stone. "I do love a chase." Greta's lungs burn. She's not fast enough, not strong enough. In seconds he'll catch her and... She rounds a corner and slams directly into someone. Arms catch her before she can fall. Mia. "Greta!" Her sister's face is pale with terror. Run, now!" Greta grabs Mia's hand and pulls, but Vincent appears at the corridor's end, blocking their escape route. "2 for the price of 1, even better." He advances slowly, savoring their fear. Morgana was right. The king's love makes him weak. And you too. His gaze flicks between them. "You're the proof." Greta pushes Mia behind her, scanning desperately for an escape. There, a side passage, narrow and dark. She drags Mia toward it, but Vincent is faster. He catches Greta's arm, claws digging in, and she screams as pain lances through her shoulder. Then Vincent's head snaps back, his grip releasing. Aldrich stands there, his hand fisted in Vincent's collar, his expression beyond fury. He looks nothing like the controlled king from the banquet. This is something primal, ancient, terrifying. "You touched her," Aldrich says, his voice barely recognizable. "You made her bleed." Vincent tries to speak, to use blood magic, but Aldrich moves faster than Greta's eyes can track. There's a sickening crack, and Vincent crumples to the ground, unconscious or dead. She can't tell. Aldrich turns to Greta, and his expression shatters into something desperate. "You're hurt." "I'm okay. Mia. Where's Mia?" Her sister emerges from the shadows, shaking but unharmed. Aldrich quickly assesses them both, then pulls them close. The east wing is compromised. Morgana and 2 others are holding Lord Thaddeus and several servants hostage. They want... He stops, his jaw clenching. They want me, Greta finishes. I'm the leverage. You're not going anywhere near them. Aldrich, if people are in danger because of me... No. His arms tighten around her. I won't trade you. Not for anything. But even as he speaks, Beatrice appears at the corridor's end, her face grave. Your Majesty, Morgana has issued an ultimatum. She'll release the hostages and leave peacefully if Greta is surrendered to the Southern Covenant. She has 10 minutes to decide. Greta feels Aldrich go rigid. And if I refuse? She'll start killing hostages, starting with the human servants. Beatrice's voice is gentle, but firm. She knows you care about them. She's counting on it. Aldrich closes his eyes briefly, and Greta sees the impossible choice weighing on him. Sacrifice innocent lives to protect her, or surrender her to vampires who see her as a political pawn, at best. There has to be another way, Mia whispers. And suddenly, Greta knows what she has to do. There is. She steps back from Aldrich's embrace. I'll go. I'll offer myself in exchange for the hostages. Absolutely not. Listen to me. Greta grabs his hands. You taught me self-defense for a reason. Beatrice has been training me in vampire politics. I'm not the helpless human I was 3 months ago. She squeezes his fingers. And Morgana doesn't want me dead. I heard her tell Vincent to keep me intact. She wants leverage, not a corpse, which means I have time. Time for what? For you to outmaneuver her, to find a way to end this without bloodshed. Greta's voice steadies. You're brilliant at strategy, Aldrich. You faked your own death to expose traitors. You can handle one ambitious vampire and her delusions of conquest. Greta, trust me. She rises on her toes and kisses him, quick and fierce. Trust that I can hold my own long enough for you to finish this. Like you trusted me at the banquet. Aldrich looks torn between pride and absolute terror. Finally, he turns to Beatrice. Tell Morgana I'm coming to negotiate. I want guarantees for Greta's safety. Aldrich, Greta starts, but he silences her with a look. If you're doing this, we're doing it right, with protections in place, with witnesses. His voice drops. And if she harms one hair on your head, I'll raise the Southern Covenant to ash. 15 minutes later, Greta stands in the East Wing's Grand Hall, facing Morgana across a space littered with broken furniture and scorch marks from blood magic. Hostages kneel against one wall, guarded by Morgana's remaining companions. Lord Thaddeus is among them, his face bruised but defiant. Aldrich stands beside Greta, flanked by his loyal guards. The room crackles with tension, magic, and the promise of violence. So, Morgana says, looking pleased, the little consort volunteers herself. How noble. In exchange for all hostages released unharmed, Aldrich states coldly, and a blood oath that Greta will not be injured, killed, or sold during her time in your custody. Custody. Morgana tastes the word. Such an interesting choice. But very well. I agree to your terms. The girl remains unharmed until the Southern Covenant Council decides her fate. A formal hearing, all very civilized. And how long does she remain with you? 3 days. Long enough to make our point about human fragility and vampire politics. Morgana's smile is sharp, after which she'll be returned to you, assuming the council rules in her favor. And if they don't, then she becomes property of the Covenant. A reminder that even kings must bow to collective authority. Greta sees Aldrich's hands clench, sees him calculating odds and outcomes. She touches his arm gently. 3 days, she says quietly. I can do 3 days. Greta, do you trust me? The question hangs between them. Finally, Aldrich nods, though it clearly costs him everything. The exchange happens quickly. Hostages released, blood oaths sworn with ancient magic that binds even the oldest vampires. When Morgana's hand closes around Greta's wrist, Aldrich's expression promises destruction if anything goes wrong. 3 days, he tells Morgana, his voice carrying absolute certainty. And then I'm coming for her, one way or another. We'll see. Morgana tugs Greta toward the exit. Come, little human. Time to see how you fare without your king to protect you. As they leave, Greta catches one last glimpse of Aldrich, fierce and furious and hers, before Morgana pulls her into darkness. The southern delegation's estate is 3 hours away by carriage. Greta spends the journey in silence, watching Morgana and her companions through lowered lashes. They're confident, relaxed now that they have what they want. They think they've won. They have no idea what's coming. Because Greta knows something they don't. During those long hours of strategy training with Beatrice, the old vampire taught her about council politics, about legal precedents, about the exact rules governing disputes between territories. And there's a loophole. A narrow, ancient provision that allows a human consort to appeal directly to the full Covenant Council if she can prove her value to vampire society extends beyond personal relationships. Morgana is counting on Greta being too frightened or ignorant to invoke it. She's wrong. When they arrive at the southern estate, all dark stone and Gothic architecture, Greta is escorted to a surprisingly comfortable suite. No chains, no dungeon. Morgana wants her intact for the council hearing. Rest, Morgana instructs. The council convenes tomorrow evening. I suggest you prepare your arguments, though I doubt they'll help. After she leaves, Greta sinks onto the bed and lets herself shake for exactly 2 minutes. Then she straightens, wipes her eyes, and begins planning. The council chamber is circular, with 13 ancient vampires seated in high-backed chairs. Morgana presents her case first, that human consorts represent dangerous emotional compromises, that Aldrich's judgment has been impaired, that stronger territorial leadership is needed. Then, it's Greta's turn. She stands in the center of the circle, very aware that she's one human facing the most powerful vampires in the southern territories. Her voice shakes at first, but she pushes through. She tells them about the loyalty test, about how her presence helped expose traitors who would have eventually destroyed Montclair's stability. She speaks about the perspective she brings, human understanding that helps Aldrich navigate human-vampire relations more effectively. She cites legal precedent, invokes ancient laws about consort rights and territorial sovereignty, and then, when several council members still look skeptical, she pivots. You think love makes vampires weak, she says, addressing the entire council, but I've seen the opposite. I've watched Aldrich become more strategic, more careful, more determined because he has something worth protecting. Not weaker, focused, motivated in ways immortals who've lived centuries often aren't. She pauses, gathering courage. You're not afraid I make him weak. You're afraid I make him unpredictable. That he might prioritize his chosen family over your political games. That he might remember what it's like to care about something beyond power. She meets Morgana's eyes. And that terrifies you, because it means you can't control him the way you control others. Silence fills the chamber. Then one of the oldest council members, a woman who looks carved from marble, speaks. You invoke the provision of autonomous value. Do you understand what that requires? Greta's heart races. Yes. I must prove that my contributions to vampire society extend beyond my relationship with King Aldrich, that my presence serves a greater purpose. And can you prove this? I can. I've been documenting human-vampire conflicts in Montclair territory and proposing solutions that honor both communities. I've established communication channels with human settlements that had been hostile for decades. Enough. The ancient vampire raises one hand. We will deliberate. You may wait outside. The next hour is the longest of Greta's life. She paces the antechamber, replaying every word, every argument, wondering if she did enough. Finally, the doors open. The marble woman beckons her forward. The council has reached a decision. Her expression reveals nothing. We find that while unconventional, your role in Montclair territory serves legitimate purposes beyond emotional attachment. The provision of autonomous value is satisfied. Greta's knees nearly buckle with relief. However, the woman continues, we impose 2 conditions. First, you must formalize your contributions by accepting an official position, Ambassador for Human Relations. This gives your work legal standing. I accept. Second, you will submit annual reports to this council demonstrating continued value. If you fail to meet standards, this ruling can be revisited. I understand. The woman's expression softens fractionally. You did well, child. Few humans have the courage to face this council, much less outmaneuver Lady Morgana's political scheming. She glances at Morgana, whose face is carefully blank. You're free to return to Montclair. Immediately. Morgana escorts Greta to the carriage with icy politeness. Before Greta can climb inside, Morgana speaks quietly. I underestimated you. That won't happen again. Is that a threat? An acknowledgement. You have steel beneath that mortal fragility. Morgana's lips curve slightly. I still think human consorts are dangerous. But perhaps some dangers are worth the risk. It's the closest thing to respect Greta will ever get from her. The carriage ride back feels endless, but when they finally crest the hill overlooking Montclair Estate, Greta sees Aldrich standing at the gates. He's been waiting. The moment the carriage stops, she's out the door and running. Aldrich catches her, lifting her completely off the ground, his face buried in her hair. I knew you could do it, he murmurs. My brilliant, fierce love. I knew. I invoked the provision. I argued my case. Greta pulls back to look at him. Aldrich, I'm officially Ambassador for Human Relations now. I have to submit annual reports. I'll help you write them. He's grinning. Actually grinning. Every single one. We'll make them so thorough the council won't know what hit them. Around them, the household has gathered. Beatrice beaming, Mia crying happy tears, guards cheering. Even Lord Thaddeus manages a rare smile. That night, after celebrations wind down and they're finally alone in Aldrich's chambers, Greta collapses onto the bed with exhausted relief. I was terrified, she admits. The entire time, I was absolutely terrified. But you did it anyway. Aldrich lies beside her, pulling her close. That's what courage is. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. He kisses her temple, her cheek, her lips. 3 days felt like 3 centuries. Don't ever do that to me again. Can't promise that. I'm officially a diplomat now. Comes with the territory. Insufferable woman. You're insufferable woman. Mine, he agrees, the possessiveness in his voice sending warmth through her. Always mine, for however long we have. Greta thinks about the future, the annual reports, the political maneuvering, the constant navigation of vampire society. It won't be easy, but then nothing worth having ever is. Aldrich? Thank you for trusting me, for letting me face the council instead of trying to rescue me immediately. He's quiet for a moment. It went against every instinct. But you were right. You're not the frightened woman who first came here. You're someone who faces down ancient vampires and wins. His arms tighten around her. Someone extraordinary. Just someone who loves you enough to fight for our future. That, Aldrich murmurs against her hair, makes you the most extraordinary of all. They fall asleep tangled together, and Greta dreams not of councils or politics, but of small moments. Sourdough bread on Sunday mornings, a one-eyed cat purring in her lap, the sound of Mia's laughter echoing through stone corridors, and Aldrich's hand finding hers in darkness, steady and sure. When she wakes, sunlight streams through windows, and Aldrich is already up, reading through documents at his desk. He looks up when she stirs, and the smile that crosses his face is pure contentment. Good mornings, Ambassador? Greta laughs, stretching. Good morning, Your Majesty. We have work to do today, human-vampire relations to improve, reports to begin documenting, political relationships to rebuild after Morgana's disaster. Sounds exhausting. Undoubtedly. He sets aside his papers and returns to bed, gathering her close. But first, breakfast. Then I thought we'd visit Mia. She's been asking about your council appearance. She wants every detail. She would. They spend the morning exactly like that. Ordinary and perfect. Breakfast together, visiting with Mia, walking through the estate grounds while Aldrich points out early spring flowers pushing through frost. Churchill follows them, grumbling about the cold, but refusing to be left inside. This is what they fought for, Greta realizes. Not grand gestures or dramatic rescues, though those have their place. But this, the quiet building of a life together, moment by moment, day by day. A human woman and a vampire king choosing each other again and again, despite every obstacle. And as she leans into Aldrich's side, his arm around her waist and the future stretching ahead like an open road, Greta knows with absolute certainty that she wouldn't change a single thing. Not the fear, not the danger, not the impossible odds. Because all of it led here, to this moment, to this love. And that makes every battle worth fighting, every risk worth taking, every impossible thing possible.